So let's have some straight talk about solar. I got to thinking about this today. I got a Tic Toc from a friend of mine who's a little bit on the red team, and it was about hail and solar panels. And hey, did you think about what happens when solar panels break? So, if you're someone who wants to believe that there are no issues with solar panels, yeah, there's a bunch of English channels you might want to go read. I'm not that guy. And if you're sold that there's nothing that could ever replace a coal plant, yeah, there's a lot of other channels, climate skeptics, you can go find them. But if you want to hear it straight, let's press on. So I'm going to talk first about the hail, then why I know a thing or two about it, and then about solar in general. Concerning the hail, solar panels do not easily break even from hail. My own panels, I've had them for many years, two houses, and just your run of the mill hailstorm is not going to break them unless, key unless, they are defective. And that's not to say that from time to time you do not end up with a batch of defective panels. So now, just like I said, that they don't normally break, if you have a hailstorm that's strong enough to put divots in your car, it stands a good chance of putting cracks in your solar panels. So I'm not telling you it can't happen. And when they're building a solar field out in Texas, which is where I saw the video, and they lose a bunch of solar panels, and the question was, well, who's going to pay? Well, the electric company that's buying the power is either directly or indirectly going to pay, just like they end up paying for the maintenance on a turbine in a gas plant when it goes bad, just like they end up paying for the lines that went down in the same thunderstorm. It's a cost of doing business. Now, I'll talk a little bit more on the whole cost of doing business thing because there are some issues with solar panels that I don't think are fully appreciated by industry at large. But we'll start with why I know a thing or two about this. Well, as I mentioned, I've had personally solar panels on a couple of houses, but that per se doesn't make me an expert for all things solar, right? There's difference between panels on your house and utility scale panels. I, as you may know if you listen to the channel, was a military program manager. I worked on the Global Hawk. Why the Global Hawk have anything to do with this? Glad you asked. So when the Global Hawk was first made, and I was part of that team, I was a reservist at the time, then I went back active duty after 9/11. It was envisioned as a throwaway item. And in the process of doing that, it could handle your average hail. But if you left it out on a runway and a really bad hailstorm came along, it was going to do bad things to it. And the program was, 10 years old and it was going into production for full rate. And the question came up of how strong does the skin have to be? And those of us who've been around for a while were like, well, it's supposed to be disposable. And then there was the folks who had to worry about maintaining it and are like, I don't think so. I don't happen to keep spare Global Hawks around to swap out all the sensors because you say it's okay to lose a Global Hawk or two over the lifetime. All right. So that, in some degree, is the question here with solar panels. We spent a lot of time discussing and looking at different approaches to it. If anyone wanted to hear more about that, to start with, I have a video on the Global Hawk and how my experience relates to climate. And I could do a lot deeper dive into the particular subject here. But at the end of the day, the question when you're dealing with solar panels are they have a lower operational cost. That's one of the big selling points, right? They make their money over a 10 to 20 year life cycle, and you don't have to be fueling them. You have a lot less maintenance. So the more maintenance you have to do, the more of an issue it becomes for solar. You don't want to be maintaining them all the time. Now, it's a flashy story when someone takes a picture of a particular hailstorm. I'm not personally going to get all that fired up about it. It's kind of like that whole thing with home gardening, urban gardening, and carbon emissions. I did a video on that if you want to take a look at that. Now, the issue though is because it's less predictable, do you keep a bunch of spare panels around to handle the problem? And companies, just like people, just like me, are not going to be investing in a bunch of panels that they're just leaving on hand for those hailstorm that may come this year, may come 3 years from now, may come 5 years from now. And if they're unlucky, they might have to do it twice and then not have enough panels. So this makes the whole planning for it process more difficult. And there's going to be times where they get unexpected spikes. And I'd like to tell you that they should just lay in enough spares. Going back to my military experience, though, what's the first thing the programs would do when they were getting tight on money? Yeah, they cut back on spares because I didn't know for sure I needed them. And that's not an issue that is going to just go away. And it's not even just about the cost of the spares. With my own home system, since my first system in Ohio ran really without a hitch. Early days, new contractor, very dedicated to it. Okay, moving on, moved to Florida, new system, decent contractor. They've done 3 repairs. Well, to start with, they've done 3 repairs. I would prefer that not to have happened. One of them was a bad inverter, so it's nothing wrong with the panels. One of them was a bad panel. Okay, that got swapped out. And oh, by the way, in all this discussion about hail damaging for the panel, I can tell you, and I've got some data, I'll be flipping up as I'm talking here, that the cost of my solar system, the panels are only a part. And if you did it today, a quarter to a third. So replacing panels, it's not cheap. You may not keep them all on hand, but the panels itself aren't what drive the big upfront installation costs. What doesn't get replaced, and probably the worst thing for that place that got hit in Texas for a utility setup, is they're not going to be generating power. And if they're not going to be generating power, they're not bringing in revenue. That happens for too long, they go out of business, and then those solar panels aren't doing anything until that's resolved. So I had that happen. When the inverter went out, company came, they were on their way to replace it before I even knew it went out. That was great. It took a month. I didn't get reimbursed for the month's worth of solar, which it was peak season, so $300-400 that, oh well, I had to pay Florida Power and Light because I wasn't generating power. Imagine that, and you're a company and you're not generating revenue and you've got to pay the bills, the salary, and what have you. So there's a real issue. And I do think that you have to look at solar installations location by location. I am not shocked to hear that Texas gets hailstorms. I've visited Texas many times in my life, and Texas gets some buttes of thunderstorms. I hope that was taken into account, and I hope that's part of the operational budget. Hope is not a plan. Before I freak out seeing my garden video, I would want to know more details before I say, yeah, they made a mistake, they're not good for Texas, or it's just part of cost of doing business. Um, I also would say that solar panels are kind of second generation now, so they're not brand new tech, but they're also not veteran tech. And I know for myself, when I put the panels here in Florida, I've run into an issue that I never thought of. I figured the panels would be hot enough. I never had an issue with buildup on them and mold. And how do you clean that off without damaging the panels? And I can tell you from a little experiment I ran, that's an issue. Is that an issue everywhere? No. Everywhere, every site is going to have some specific issues. And to a certain extent, this global rollout of solar, which is a good thing. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying. This is not even a climate versus non-climate. If you're looking for power generation, solar's the future. All right, it is definitely the future, but it's a future that has details, and details matter. So let me know what you think. Really interested to hear, frankly, what some of the climate activists who don't seem to be liking my videos too much um, have to say. And if you're a climate skeptic and you want to tell me I don't know anything, if you're going to talk about real issues and you got some dollars and cents or something, I'm all about it. Let me know. I take that stuff seriously. If you're flat earth, yeah, no, go find somewhere else. So With that, take care. Look forward to hearing from you. Talk to you soon.